Our next problem is how can we access the contents from the models of our Zesty instance to our Next.js project? So there are two ways that we will use for this project. The first way is to just use the content object. If we head back to our VS Code, the first way is to just use the content object that is passed in our homepage component. Then the second way would be to access the contents from the dataset models using a custom endpoint. So to show you how we can access the items in our homepage model, we can try to console log this content object in here. Then let's head back to our website. Then let's try to refresh this. As you can see, in this object, we got the button name, headline, as well as the image and the subheadline. So using this, we can access all of the contents from our homepage model to our Next.js project. So the second way is to create a custom endpoint. And to do that, let's head back to our instance and then let's go to the code editor. So click the button in here. And then what we can do is we can create a JSON file for this. So for this, let's use the custom file type endpoint. And then let's create a file for this. And as you can notice, we can actually create the file inside the folder by using this format API. Then let's say, let's add another folder, homepage folder, and then the JSON file that we want to create. Okay, so the next step involves using Parsley to extract the content from our dataset model and populate this JSON file. Now, if you want to know more about Parsley, you can check our documentation page for that. But now I have a sample code snippet in here. This generates a key value pair for the highlights content. What this code does is it iterates over each item in the highlights model and returns them as an array associated with the highlights key. Now, let's try to access the data set, this dataset JSON file to view the data that we can obtain. To do that, let's click this button in here for more file information. And then we can access the web engine link for this JSON. And as you can see in here, we have the highlights key, and the value of the highlights key is an array. This array consists of multiple items from the highlights model. As we can see, we have a multiple title in here, subtitle, and we can also access the image for this individual array element inside this highlights key. Okay, so that's it. For now, let me finish this JSON object first and let me fast forward from here. Okay, that's done. So let's check the link again. Let's save this first. Then let's go to the link. Then let's hit refresh. Now, as you can see in here, we can now access the data in our dataset models with this. Now, to access this data in our project, we can create a function that fetches this data. What we did up until now is we created an instance for the project. We created a Next.js starter from Zesty. Then we synced that instance to our project. Then we made models in our instance and populated them, as well as created a custom endpoint for our dataset models. Now with this, we are now ready for the coding part. Now, I don't want to bore you, so I'll speed up the video from here and stop from time to time if there's an important thing to discuss, since we already did the major things for this project. All right, we are now done migrating the website. All of the images that you see from here comes from our instance as well as the text. Now, let's review what we had done for a bit in our project. So let's head over to the homepage file. As I said earlier, there are two ways that we used in order for us to get the data from our instance. The first way is by using the data that was passed on to this homepage component. And the second way is by fetching the custom endpoint that we created in our instance. So as you can see here, we just accessed the custom endpoint using this custom root. So if we head back to our instance and go to the code tab, then let's access this dataset.json again. Let's click this web engine link. So what we did in our project is we fetch this web engine link, and then as we get the dataset.json, as you can see in here, so we stored the data in the use states and then passed those data in our components. So I think that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us through this journey. If you have any questions or need further clarification on any topics, please leave a comment below.